конференції. Будь ласка, займайте свої місця у залі. Наша конференція продовжиться за 1 хвилину. Запрошую вас зайняти свої місця на сцені. Дякую. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We proceed with the conference. Шановні учасники конференції, будь ласка, займіть свої місця у залі. Ми продовжуємо нашу роботу. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We proceed with the conference. Шановні учасники конференції, будь ласка, займіть свої місця у залі. Ми продовжуємо нашу роботу. Ladies and gentlemen, while you are taking your seats, I want to announce that we are starting the second panel. It will be focused on the issue of destruction of healthcare facilities, the scale of damages and accountability. It will be moderated by Jonathan Raitel, barrister and international prosecutor, expert of EU project Право Justice. Пані та панове, доки ви займаєте свої місця у залі, ми розпочинаємо другу дискусійну панель нашої конференції. Ця панель буде присвячена проблемі руйнування медичних закладів, масштаби збитків та відповідальності. Її модерує Джонатан Рейтел, барістер та міжнародний прокурор, експерт проєкту ЄС «Право Justice». So, Mr. Reitl, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure of mine to introduce this critical issue of the destruction of healthcare facilities in Ukraine. My name is Jonathan Rattel, and in a former life, I was a major crimes prosecutor in Canada, and I had the opportunity to spend 3 years working with the OPG in Odessa recently. So this issue is of critical importance. The United Nations Human Rights Monitoring Mission in Ukraine, as we just heard from, confirms the Russian military has exposed the civilian population in Ukraine to unnecessary and disproportionate harm with these attacks against civilian infrastructure, including attacks against medical facilities. It's estimated that approximately 11,000 to 40,000 civilian deaths are directly related to these attacks on civilian structures. And these attacks must be considered by the Russian military deliberate and indiscriminate in densely populated areas. They are deliberate attacks, and they include the widespread and systematic attacks against medical facilities, hospitals, medical practitioners, doctors, nurses, and patients, and the sick and the wounded. So this expert panel shall advance the argument, in my view, that there is clear evidence exists that these attacks by the Russian Federation against Ukraine's civilian infrastructure, medical facilities, hospitals, doctors, nurses, and patients are in fact widespread and systematic and constitute a war crime of a higher level, a crime against humanity all on its own. So this is a very significant issue. It's an issue that the international community will be looking at. Let's not forget that the protection of the sick and the wounded was the first principle of the first Geneva Convention signed in 1864, and we can draw a direct line between that first Geneva Convention and what is happening on the ground here in Ukraine. So, without further delay, I'm going to now introduce the panel, and we will be looking at a video just shortly. But I want to introduce, first of all, the Honorable Minister of Health, Victor Leshko, is present, and we're very happy to have him here. Deputy Head of the Security Service of Ukraine, Sergei Numik, is here. The Head of the Media Initiative for Human Rights, Olga Rashovdova, is here. And the Director of the Human Rights and Justice Program, Roman Romanov, is also present, of the Renaissance Foundation. But first, we're going to have a video. The video, I want to emphasize, this is to immerse ourselves in the atmosphere that healthcare workers in Ukraine experience every day, and then we'll move on to hearing our first speaker, the minister himself. Well, I think you can see the impact of that. And now we understand that is a daily experience of the doctors and nurses, the medical staff in the hospitals in Ukraine that they are facing every single day. You may have seen in the video the emblems of the Red Cross. This is a protected emblem under the Geneva Convention, and it is sacrosanct, and it is a war crime to attack any facility or ambulance or other structure with that emblem. This is well known under the Geneva Conventions. So I want to turn it over to the Minister of Health, to talk about the challenges, the difficulties that his staff are facing on a daily basis. Minister, please. Thank you.
Дуже дякую. Я хотів би розпочати свій виступ, коротеньку презентацію.
Thank you very much. I would want to start my presentation by saying the words of appreciation and gratitude to all doctors and nurses who provide their services no matter what. In this screen, you can see some numbers, and the first one is just scary. 100 persons from among the medical personnel. 100 people were killed while exercising their duties in the ambulances, in the hospitals, in other locations, while at service, while helping people, not to count military medical workers who are currently part of the armed forces of Ukraine. There is no explanation and no justification to these massive deliberate attacks on civil infrastructure, including on medical facilities. In this picture, you can see a young doctor who was killed 3 days after he was appointed to office. He just graduated from the university. He was just appointed to his position, and 3 days later, he was killed. When we talk about terrible statistics, we say that Russian inflicts terrible damage to Ukraine. These are not just words. In this picture, you can see the building of medical facilities, which was destroyed by the Russian attack. However, buildings can be restored with time, not as quickly, as promptly as we would want to, but we cannot bring back people once they killed. That is why, let me share with you some official numbers depicting what we could identify for sure as deliberate attacks on healthcare facilities by the Russian Federation. So in this slide, you can see some numbers. So 715 legal entities constituting healthcare facilities found themselves under attack. More than 1,000 buildings were damaged. 216 buildings were completely destroyed. There is no chance to restore them. This is a preliminary number. However, we know for sure now that 216 buildings cannot be restored. They will be just demolished, and there will be a need to build new facilities. The estimated losses amount to 7 billion euros. So we need 7 billion euros in order to renovate what was damaged. We're not talking about any progress, about moving forward, about developing the healthcare facilities infrastructure. No, not at all. We are talking about bringing back to what it used to be before the full-scale invasion. You can see from this map that there are very few regions across the country which have not experienced Russian attacks on healthcare facilities. Unfortunately, healthcare facilities are under attack on daily basis. Today only we have a hospital in the town of Semenivka in Chernihiv region which ended up under shelling and was heavily damaged. Pharmacy points are also under attacks. Pharmacy points is part of a medical infrastructure. Having them in place means greater access to medical care for Ukrainian citizens. That is why targeting pharmacy points constitute yet another war crime committed by the Russian Federation. This is a flagrant and deliberate violation of international law and Geneva Conventions. In this slide, you can see a mobile pharmacy point which is moving around the Kharkiv region in order to give access to medications to people who remain in this area. We are talking about some indispensable medications such as insulin, such as other medications which are needed to support people with some heavier conditions. Now, going back to numbers, ambulances also get under attack. As of now, we can say that 1 out of 5 ambulances have been either damaged or destroyed in Ukraine. The trend of the latest days is deliberate and targeted drone attacks on ambulances which are circulating around Kherson region, in other places which are close to hostilities areas of these ambulances. These vehicles are marked with the Red Cross emblem. However, despite this fact, they get under attack, and this is terrible. I'm very grateful to the organizers, to all the stakeholders for raising these issues, because they are extremely important. And I truly hope that the perpetrators, the authors of those terrible crimes, will be held liable and will be properly prosecuted. Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting comments, one of which is the connection, and I understand there's very good cooperation between the investigative authorities and the Ministry of Health with regard to the recording of these incidents. The attack on ambulances is incredibly important for investigators and prosecutors. They bear that protected emblem under the First Geneva Convention, and it is a direct piece of evidence that this is deliberate attack against the protections afforded to the wounded and the sick under medical care under the First Geneva Convention. So this is an ideal opportunity for investigators and prosecutors, and I know there's very good cooperation with the Ministry of Health and the investigators. I can tell you this myself, I have seen these images. I've seen them in Canada. You have no idea how much news from Ukraine is carried in Canada. I think 1 in 10 Canadians has a Ukrainian connection, but I must tell you that Canadians are watching these visuals very closely. The attack at the Children's Hospital in Ukraine was considered an outrage in Canada, just an absolute outrage. So I want you to understand that very well. It is being watched very closely, and we are with you. I want to turn to the next panelist. Very importantly, we have member, deputy head of the SSU with us today, and I'm very pleased to have this good cooperation between the investigative arm and the victims of these atrocities. So, Sergey, please go ahead with your presentation, Sergey.
Доброго дня, шановні колеги.
Good day, dear colleagues and dear participants, whoever is here. I am Deputy Head of the State Security Service of Ukraine. My name is Serhiy Naumyuk. I am responsible for arranging the pre-trial investigations by SSU investigators, and I'll cover the investigations conducted regarding the attacks by the Russian Federation against the medical facilities and medical infrastructure of Ukraine. The investigators of the SSU, according to by the procedural guidance from the OPG, from the full-scale invasion up till now, have already 81,101 proceedings by Articles 447, 438. Now you can see on the slide what is this about, what these articles are about. After a commission of the attacks and critical infrastructure facilities, the investigators have pre-trial investigations in yet another 2,389 proceedings. Out of them, 360 criminal proceedings concerning the shelling of the medical facilities. After these investigations, the respective units are established who do this shelling. It's a long-range aviation, at least. It's a special operations, 565 shellings. It's the Black Fleet and the artillery and the missiles and the tactical aviation. After analyzing this, we see what are the units that are most used. This information is reflected in this slide. What types of armaments was used. You see that Shahed, a drone, and H-101, also aviation bombs were used very often. Those are the most frequent types of armaments used. International humanitarian law clearly sets out that medical facilities are civil infrastructure that under no circumstances may be attacked. However, despite this, the Russian Federation, from the beginning of the full-scale invasion, destructs and destroys medical facilities, thus committing gross violations of IHL. According to the Convention on the Right and the Customs and Laws of Arms, and Geneva Conventions of 1941 and 1949, and additional protocols concerning the protection of the victims of international armed conflicts. The attacks against medical facilities is a grave violation of the IHL. And such objects that were attacked are the following. You can see this on the slides, the objects of the attack. After working on this information received from the Ministry of Health, we see the number of objects that were subject to attacks that were destroyed, that are being renewed and rebuilt and restored. Separate examples of attacks against medical facilities are the following. On the 26th of June 2023, Iskander M hit the center of psychiatric hospital in Dnipro. Because of this, 4 people died, 31 people were injured, 2 children out of them. Moreover, on the 29th of December 2023, the Crusade missile hit another facility in Dnipro, killing 2 people and injuring 5. In 2024, we finalized the investigation and have indicted the tank commander, Mr. Zhuravlev, who on the 23rd of March 2024 gave a combat order to the tank gang operator to hit the medical facility. On the 14th of February, Trostanetsk Court of Sumy region found Mr. Zhuravlev guilty of the criminal proceeding of the crime committed under Article 438, and he was sentenced to the deprivation of liberty for 11 years. Most flagrant shelling took place on the 8th of July 2024 when the Ohmadet Specialized Children's Hospital that killed 2 people, including a pediatric nephrologist, and injuring 35 people, including 9 children. The State Security Service of Ukraine Main Investigations Department is conducting the criminal proceeding 632 under the article number 438 part 2. You can see the results of the attack right here on the slide. In the photo you can see the place where the hill where the missile hit, that was the ICU unit for the kidney diseases where the children were being treated. And the missile fragments had caused damage to the surrounding facilities and several surrounding departments of the hospital. Moreover, the Russian missile hit the center of children's cardiology department, where there were 3 operations on the heart. They were in process. The investigators had objective control radio location centers of the armed forces of Ukraine and the respective air forces that showed the trajectory of the missile since it was launched. It was determined that the missile H-101 was launched at approximately 10:42 in the Saratov region from Tu-91 MS was launched. That started with the Olenogorsk-Murmansk region of the Russian Federation. That was the starting point of that aviation. You can see how that missile went into the north of Ukraine, and then it turned left when it didn't reach Konotop, and then it was launched further, moved to Kiev, where it hit the children's hospital. It shows that the enemy, the main computing center of the General Staff of the Russian Federation, and its military task was to evade anti-aircraft systems and hit the target. After this expert examinations and fragments, it was determined that the hit against the children's hospital was by X-101 with the serial number 315-263-7961-012. This number was detected on the bottom of the missile and the deformed optical element. On the slide you can see exactly what is the decoding of this number, what it means. 315 is the code of the manufacturer Raduga Design Bureau. 2063 shows that the missile was made after 2021. The cipher shows that it was done in the second quarter of the 2024. 64 is the number of the series, and 61 and 12 is the number of the missile in that series of all the missiles produced in 61 range. It shows also the fragment of the element of this cruise missile. You can see that these are unique elements of these wings, and they are only intrinsic to this type of the missile. While conducting the pretrial investigation, the State Security Service and the Department of the Office of the Prosecutor General have received the non-dubious of the long-range aviation of the Russian airspace forces. It shows that using the plane Tu-95 MS. Then on the September 10th, the commander of the long-range aviation of the Russian Space Forces, Kobelash Sergei Ivanovich, was served a notice of suspicion on the grounds of a crime under Part 2 of Article 438 of the Criminal Code of Ukraine. Early on the 5th of March 2024, the second chamber of the pretrial proceedings of the International Criminal Court, based on the evidence collected, issued an arrest warrant for the Lieutenant General Kobelash for committing massive missile attacks against Ukrainian energy facility objects between October 10th, 2022 and March 5, 2023. Unfortunately, the enemy is still shelling civilian infrastructure, including medical facilities. Over the last 2 weeks, we see that the strikes were launched against the rehabilitation for children facility in Sumy region, prenatal center, Kherson clinical healthcare facility, also special sanatorium, and another facility mentioned by the Ministry of Health. The security service investigators continue to collect evidence of crimes committed by the Russian Federation against the civil population of Ukraine in order to bring those involved to accountability, to hold them accountable. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you, Sergey, for that excellent presentation. It shows the commitment and the extreme detail that your office is showing with the investigations and really cooperating with the international community, and the arrest warrants being issued are proof of that, so that is just fantastic. I want to turn to Ola now, and Ola, you have a unique opportunity to give us a point of view from the civil society. Please, Ola, go ahead.
Thank you. Я перейду на українську мову, так буде значно.
I'll use Ukrainian, it will be much faster. Let me start by stating that recording the facts of attacks against the Ministry of Health is not the priority for our organization. However, it so happened that whatever you investigate, whatever you document, you still deal with the ruination and attacks on the health facilities in Ukraine. For example, we received a call from Mariupol from a doctor of the Donetsk Regional Hospital of the Intensive Care Unit, Ms. Oksana, who informed us that their hospital was captured by the Russian. It was back in 2022, and the people, the mothers who were to give the birth were taken their first child, died, the newborn child, and then the woman who said that I don't want to leave. Therefore, at the beginning of 2022, frankly speaking, we were not yet aware what to do with that. We didn't have respective experience, although a lot of hospitals were destroyed as of 2014, but we didn't have the real experience of documenting these crimes, and we are very grateful to Physicians for Human Rights who were there to help us. And back in 2022, we started preparing a special report together with them, a report that was called Ruination and Devastation, where our organization also provided that facts, testimony by Oksana, or, for example, during the investigation of the shelling of the convoy of civilians between Kremenna and Lozova, we knew that a person called the emergency healthcare facilities, and the ambulance was called, but it didn't reach that. In fact, that ambulance that had a sign of Red Cross, it was shelled, and fortunately the doctors were able to survive, and people who were coming back to Liman, and the respective OB-GYN specialist who was telling us about that, how they were trying to reach that place by alternative ways. We know how Russians attacked the healthcare system in 2022-2023. The average number every day, at least, or on average, 2 ruinations of the healthcare facilities happened. And here is the latest numbers. They are very similar to the numbers named by Mr. Minister. I want to tell here that we, together with the Physicians for Human Rights, have recorded, as of last month, a total number of events affecting the healthcare amounting to 1,521, including the blackouts and power cuts. 742 hospitals or clinics were damaged or destroyed. 103 attacks that rested hospital utilities were affected. We see that we have there are people who died because of the Russian attacks, over 200 people who were killed, and 366 were injured. Attack against Ahmadiyat a couple of weeks back, I guess, we saw what's going on. The world saw what's happening with the healthcare system in Ukraine, how Russia systematically destroys it. However, the thing is that it's not the first attempt to attack Ahmadiyat. In the report that I mentioned, it says that on the 26th of February 2022, Ahmadiyat had special signage, target signage for missiles, evidently that Russia was supposed to hit this medical healthcare facility.
There were also attempts to target objects in the close proximity to Ahmadiyat. Early in 2023, windows were broken in Ahmadiyat as a result of another missile attack, which proves that Russians were waiting for a good moment to attack precisely this medical facility. I can also remember the team and myself being in Toretsk. It's a town in the Donetsk region, very close to the front line. It is in the proximity to the front line since 2014, since the landscape doesn't allow attacking the city with expected success. The situation in Toretsk was bearable since 2014. So we visited the town 3 days after the attack on a hospital, and we talked to the medical staff, and they witnessed that the hospital was under shelling for 3 days. It was under heavy shelling from the town of Horlivka, which is not under control of Ukrainian government and which is located not far from the town of Toretsk. We checked it to make sure that there was no military object close to the hospital, and there was none. That is why those massive attacks could only be assessed as deliberate and targeted attacks on medical and healthcare facilities. This is what we saw in Toretsk. This is what happens in all other regions all over Ukraine. Mr. Serhiy mentioned the notice of suspicion, which was issued as a result of attack on the hospital in the town of Trostanets in Sumy region. So the hospital was shelled by deliberately from close distance by tankists. They were prosecuted and adjudicated to 11 years of imprisonment, but unfortunately in absentia. I think this is of common desire to see all these people who are the perpetrators in these crimes face the actual punishment one day, because when crimes remain unpunished, it leads to even more crimes in the future. If Russian generals who committed terrible war crimes in Syria and other countries had been punished at that time, they would probably have not committed more terrible crimes in Ukraine. Thank you for your attention.
it's really interesting to see your dossier, the comments by the minister and by Sergey and yourself. I think back 23 years ago, I was at a tribunal in The Hague, the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. Each one of you, I can remember as witnesses on war crimes because there were identical witnesses at that tribunal in The Hague concerning what you have said here. Identical. We had ministers from Bosnia and Herzegovina, from Croatia, we had civil society, and we had SSU officials exactly the same. So this is exactly the type of evidence that's needed and will be heard, absolutely. I want to turn to our final, very important speaker, witness, Roman Romanov, the director of the Human Rights and Justice Program for the Renaissance Foundation. Roman, please.
Thank you very much. Знаєте, в 22-му році, після початку повномасштабного вторгнення, наша
So thank you for giving me the floor. Ukraine Democracy Fund was established right after the full-scale invasion in order to be able to document all evidence of crimes committed by the Russian Federation in the Ukrainian territory after the full-scale invasion. Russia is very much experienced in exercising attacks in other countries, in Syria, in Chechnya, and we were told from the very beginning that it may so happen that Ukrainian medical facilities will be under attacks, and the same commanders will be responsible for these attacks. So we were told that we should expect such a scenario, and unfortunately those words turned out to be true. So the first evidence came from the city of Mariupol, from some other cities in the east, and gradually it expanded on the whole territory of Ukraine. Unfortunately, attacks on healthcare infrastructure have become something very common, somehow a routine of the war, and this is the scariest thing. As a Ukrainian citizen, as a person with a legal background, and as a person who tries following the principle of justice, I cannot accept it. I cannot stand with the fact that having this international law framework, having those protected objects clearly defined in international instruments, we still witness such terrible attacks. If you talk to people who are now in the armed forces, they will tell you that the Red Cross emblem is no more something which protects you, but which exposes you and which makes you even more exposed target than if you hadn't had that emblem on your vehicle or on yourself. Children's hospitals, regular hospitals become target of Russians' deliberate and indiscriminate attacks, which proves that this is a deliberate policy, that this is something which is somehow pushed forward and tolerated, not to say inspired by Russian commanders. Unfortunately, people cannot live, they don't know how to live without armed conflicts, not yet. But when it comes to situations where the minimum framework which was designed to protect those who are least protected is not applied properly, is neglected, then it makes the whole situation even worse. Everybody understands that one cannot force a state to comply with international law. It should be a goodwill of each state. We all remember the recent case with Mongolia, when the whole world was exercising pressure on the Mongolian government in order to make them to refuse the visit, or to do what they were supposed to do in case the Russian president steps on the Mongolian territory. But nothing happened, which makes us think that the international law doesn't work in a way it is supposed to work. Now, fragments of drones and missiles, and even drones as such, cross the border of the EU countries, of NATO countries, and nothing happens. There is no possibility to respond, which actually leads to a situation where there is no chance and no way put any pressure on a country which conducts an aggressive war, which is present in the Security Council of the United Nations, and which proves with its behavior that there is the only law in this world, the law of force, the right of force. And what they're trying to do now is to put at stake all their diplomatic influence and all their diplomatic efforts to somehow diminish the importance of international commitments, compliance with international arrest warrants, and so on. I welcome the fact that the Office of Prosecutor or the International Criminal Court opened an investigation in respect of the said events. I cannot expect the investigation to be completed in some short perspective. However, it is something which needs to be done because otherwise the situation will get worse worldwide. It's not something which is important for Ukraine. I mean, the compliance with international rules and standards and protection of medical staff, of vehicles, equipment, and so on, marked by the Red Cross. So it's not a problem of Ukraine only. It's something which is important for the whole world, because once neglected in one country, these rules will be abandoned in other countries under other circumstances and in other conflicts. We are here today sitting all together, talking to each other, and we should find the way together to stop this notorious practice by the Russian Federation and remain unpunished. Because it's the lack of punishment which pushes them forward and which gives them a clear signal which says the following: even if your conduct is in a flagrant conflict with international rules, nothing will happen. You will face no punishment. You will face no liability. We cannot afford it. That is why I'm happy to witness that despite the very complicated circumstances, despite martial law, the Ministry of Health of Ukraine, the Office of the Prosecutor General, and other stakeholders get engaged in cooperation and apply efforts to end the impunity. It's very important because otherwise we will not be able to expect any positive outcome of this conflict.
I think there's general agreement that we have moved far beyond any argument whatsoever that these attacks are not deliberate. They are deliberate, and it is very clear that they are systematic. They are systemic throughout the entire territory of Ukraine. They're deliberate and widespread. Those are the words under the convention that lead the Russian Federation to the next class of war crimes, crimes against humanity. And that's where they're headed. I think, the one question that I don't think any panel member can answer is why? Why would they do this on this level? Perhaps the answer is a cynical desperation. They know that they cannot win. They're trying to exert pressure on Ukraine and others to try and negotiate themselves out of a box they've gotten into. It's very difficult to know why. Just with the comments, Roman, I understand your frustration. I will just tell very quickly, we have 3 minutes. I'll tell a story from 23 years ago. 23 years ago, I was a young prosecutor at the ICTY, the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, in The Hague at the UN. I just arrived, it was June 28th, 2001. June 28th, 2001. Why do I remember that date? Because my boss at the tribunal told me that we needed to prepare for a very key suspect that was coming tomorrow in custody. And I had been working on a dossier. That dossier was exactly the dossier that we're talking about now, attacks on the wounded and sick. I was preparing that dossier all night in preparation for this key suspect who I did not know who it was. All that I knew was a key suspect was coming on the Kosovo indictment. At night, I heard that there was an arrival at the detention center at Scheveningen in The Hague, the UN detention center. I heard the helicopter, which began as a US helicopter arriving in Bihać in Bosnia and then transferred to a French helicopter that flew to The Hague. I heard it go over my apartment in The Hague, and in the morning, in trial chamber number 3, I walked in, and there, 10 feet away from me, was Slobodan Milosevic. I never thought I would ever see that. I never thought I would see that, but it did happen, and it can happen. So with that thought, I want to leave this excellent panel and the discussion, which I think we've all found just fantastic. So thank you very much. I want to thank the panel.
Thank you, Mr. Rettel. We thank the participants for their deep insights on the issue, and ladies and gentlemen, we will proceed with the conference in 1 hour. Now it's time for lunch, so enjoy your meal and please be in your seats in 1 hour. Thank you. Шановні пані та панове, дякуємо усім учасникам цієї дискусійної панелі за їх глибокий та детальний аналіз озвучених проблем. Ми повернемося до нашої роботи за годину о 14:00, а зараз час для обіду. Тож смачного і, будь ласка, не спізнюйтесь. Я також звертаюся до представників медіа. Шановні колеги, зараз відбудеться прес-конференція, тому, будь ласка, якщо це необхідно, ви можете підійти ближче до сцени для того, щоб отримати кращі кадри. Ми розпочнемо прес-конференцію, як тільки всі її учасники будуть готові.